The Toronto Raptors are in their final stretch of the season where they are really looking to make a playoff push, but if this report coming from an ESPN podcast is true, it could give them a lot of problems. Question marks still remain about the Raptors after being buyers at the trade deadline, when it seemed like everything was trending towards them being sellers. The team was struggling. They're outside of the play-in picture looking in, and it just really felt like this core was going to be going nowhere. But in spite of all that, to the surprise of fans around the league, especially Raptors fans, were certainly expecting the team to focus on the draft pick, especially after a couple years ago, Masai Ujiri was quoted to have said, play in for what?
Not playing the playing game, not playing the playoffs. You want to win a championship. Everybody's like, why won't you get in the plane? Playing for what? We want to win a championship here.
The Raptors went all in at the trade deadline, essentially, in acquiring Jakob Poeltl. They gave away their first-round pick for next season, as well as a couple of second-round picks in the process, also to get off Khem Birch's contract. And even though there's been better performances from the Raptors recently, we still see the deficiencies with this team shining through. And we saw it especially this week, 3 straight losses on the West Coast, one of which really being influenced by the official in that Denver game on Monday, but 2 really poor performances against the Los Angeles Clippers and the Los Angeles Lakers, where, some things go well with the starters, especially in that Lakers game, but when the bench comes in, it just highlights once again that this team just is not equipped for the run that the front office wanted to have. And that was the good thing about the trade deadline and the way it happened. Well, multiple good things came out of that trade deadline. First of all, it's very clear Jakob Poeltl is a great player that fits really, really well with this team. It also gave fans that direction, that sense of direction with this team that we just did not have originally, like halfway through the season, wondering, what are we this season? Are we going to be a team that wants to buy and be a really good team and make the playoffs? Are we going to be a selling team that is focused on going for the draft pick? The Raptors sitting somewhere in the middle. And even though it was nice that the Raptors front office picked that sort of direction for the team, it was clear that after acquiring Jakob Poeltl and Masai Ujiri's press conference after the trade deadline, it was clear that the front office wanted this team to be competitive. That was nice to have that sort of closure, but now we're sitting here wondering, 6-6 since making that trade for Jakob Poeltl. That's still nothing tremendous. That's still right smack dab in the middle, which is pretty much the worst spot you could be in an NBA season because you're not good enough to get a really good spot in the playoffs. You're not bad enough to get a really good draft pick, but maybe some building within the franchise and belief in this core to get to that level next season, be competitive. Maybe that is worth it to sacrifice that draft spot a little bit. Maybe making the play-in tournament, potentially the playoffs, is good experience for such a young core here. These are all questions that remain unanswered because we just need a little bit more time to see how everything plays out here, but it's still viable for fans at this point in the season to have some sort of critique as to what this current team is and if it was worth actually investing in the future. But with this ESPN report that has come out now about the Raptors from a very viable source, the problem could go well beyond just the fans' opinions of this current team. If you guys don't know me, my name is Jacob. I run this channel, Amateur Sports, where I cover the Raptors in video topics just like this. Also, I do live streams, and now I'm doing a ton of YouTube shorts. So if you like what you're seeing from today's video, drop a like and consider subscribing to show your support and help us on the road to 14,000 subscribers. So I myself don't consume many basketball-related content, but one thing I'm a really big fan of is the Low Post podcast with ESPN's Zach Lowe. And in a recent episode, they were talking about the Eastern Conference play-in picture. Zach Lowe had Howard Beck on. Howard Beck, technically unemployed at this point, but a very respected NBA analyst who knows a lot about the inner workings of the league. And he said on this ESPN podcast that the Raptors, the reason they went in at the deadline, the reason that they made the trade to be a buyer at the deadline and acquiring Jakob Poeltl was that the front office had a belief in this team that this core could still succeed, especially if they were provided the actual defensive center that really fits within the team and makes them better. This core still has the potential to succeed when fans like myself were saying that we're pretty out on this core. We want to see some changes. We want to see some differences. And though that was a big change, the core largely still remains intact. It's just now we finally have the big man that we've been lacking for like 2.5 seasons at this point. Finally, that area has been addressed. But the bottom line for everything when it came to the Raptors and what they did in the trade season, the front office still believes in this core. The problem is the players don't. Or at least that's what Howard Beck worded as originally before conceding that perhaps the players do not quite believe in this core. And that could be a big concern for the Raptors because part of what is going to help them achieve their goals for the season and making the playoffs, that is, after all, the goal that has been decided for this team set by the front office. But if there is disconnect between the front office and the players within the team, well, that could cause a lot of problems going through the rest of the season, as some players maybe don't believe that they can go out and win all these games. Maybe some players are there thinking that it would be better to go towards a draft pick. That might be a little bit more difficult for a player because when you're out there on the court, well, first of all, you're playing for yourself. I mean, come on. A lot of the guys here are working for their contracts at the end of the season, looking to boost their numbers, looking to be perceived in a better light, especially if there is to be this overhaul at the end of the season going on with the Raptors. They're going to want to put themselves in the best possible light to other teams. I mean, it's only natural to feel like that you want to go out there and be the best as an individual, but there's also the feeling out there that you don't want to lose. You don't want to lose games. Players don't decide to tank. Organizations decide to tank. Front offices decide to tank. So would the notion from the front office here that this team is going to be winners, it's nice to have set that mentality within the players that, hey, there is that belief in you. You're going out there to win games. We want you to go out there and win games. Don't listen to all this noise about tanking. Don't listen to all this noise about going towards draft picks. We want you out there helping this team win as many games as possible. So it's nice to have that sort of mindset, I would imagine, for any of the players on the court. But also, it can be a little bit difficult to bring those competitive levels for 48 minutes every single game for the team as a whole when there is that non-belief that this team can be successful. And when there is that non-belief that this team can be successful, well, now you start to look at the peers around you, because this is where I can perceive a big problem coming between the players. From a personal standpoint, from, beyond just the athlete that is out there on the court, this team could have a lot of agreements. And though there's been a lot of noise this season from fans that maybe there's some disagreements between players, some guys don't like each other within the roster, nothing out there has really suggested to me that that is the case. But what could definitely arise from the report here that they don't have belief in the team in succeeding, well, then there could be doubts about your peers as it comes to their ability on the court. And if you're doubting a player's ability on the court, well, maybe they're more likely to hang on to the ball a little bit longer than they should. Maybe they're more likely to not make that extra pass. And maybe they're more likely to have the morale of the team a little bit lower, because there's just that sense that this team cannot achieve what the front office expects it to achieve. And that is where some disconnect be. So this has really changed my perspective on this current Raptors team, because the way they were speaking after the All-Star break, like especially Fred VanVleet, who has kind of been thrown into this leader sort of role with this team. He was looking at, hey, we're 3.5 games back or 4.5 games back, whatever it was. We're further now. We're whatever back of that 6th seed. That is the goal, to be in that 6th seed. We don't have to go through the problems of the play-in tournament. We want to win as many games as possible. That was, Fred VanVleet saying that probably on behalf of everybody who has that sort of want and desire to be in that position, but maybe there just isn't that belief that they can go and achieve that. At least maybe there isn't that belief all the way across the entire roster for whatever reason. And if it's coming out of Howard Beck's mouth, then there certainly has to be some validity as to what he is saying there. And that is something that needs to be addressed by the front office and needs to be addressed by the coaching staff. But if there is that disconnect from the players with the front office in terms of actually achieving things, you wonder what is going on with the coaching staff as well. And, the coaching staff can largely be that bridge from the front office to the players in terms of communication levels. Well, what if there's disconnect between the coaching staff as well as to what this team can actually achieve on the court? My perception has always been that this team has belief in itself. I always felt like the front office believed in this core and that it needed tinkering, even though maybe I myself don't quite have that full belief in this core anymore and maybe lost a lot of it, especially in the last week or so, seeing how they played against both of the LA teams. But I always felt like the team was out there believing in their own abilities to go and achieve this season, because according to Will Barton, especially after coming to the Raptors, the wide discussions around the league amongst the players is that the Raptors, they're a team that is much better than their record suggests. But the more and more I see from this Raptors team, the more and more I see a team that is as good as their record suggests, which is not very, especially as we saw this week. Maybe that comes down to the bench, maybe that comes down to the coaching, maybe it comes down to the roster construction by the front office, but it's clear to see that there are problems here. And if there is doubt starting to settle in within this core, that could leave a lot of problems for the home stretch of the season where, at this point, like the Raptors having chosen the direction of winning, I'll be disappointed if they don't make the play-in tournament. I'll be disappointed if they get eliminated in the play-in tournament, because that is the direction that's been chosen. I understand, you have that silver lining, and hey, your draft pick is going to be better off as a result. And there's a lot of good prospects available in this draft that I have a keen eye on that can really help this team going forward. And I understand that, but the direction has been chosen here. This is the expectation for the team that has been set here. Therefore, if those expectations are not met, and a lot lower of expectations compared to the start of the season, especially, we've already really regressed in our expectation for this season, I'd still be disappointed if it doesn't come off in the Raptors getting to a playoff spot. Even if, yes, that does mean playing Milwaukee or Boston in the first round, and even if, yes, that does mean you lose quite handily in the first round. But I think overall, from this disconnect, fans, it's very clear to see some issue with the team. Some of it is personnel. Some of it is coaching. There's a lot of different things going wrong with the team this season. Basketball minds as good as Masai Ujiri especially certainly have understood the problems going on with this team as well. Certainly they see that there is a definitive lack of shooting, definitive lack of shot creation on this team, and definitive lack of ability to actually play offense in clutch scenarios, especially when it goes into a half-court setting. The Raptors' half-court offense this season is ranked 26th in the NBA out of 30. So there's a few teams below us, but the only teams below us in terms of half-court offense are the teams that have, really, really committed to the tank in the San Antonio Spurs, the Houston Rockets, the Charlotte Hornets, and the Detroit Pistons. 26 is essentially last because 26 teams are actually trying to win games on every given night. 4 teams are not, so they don't really count here. The Raptors, under that impression, under that criteria, what I've laid out there, are the worst half-court offense in the league. And there's still nothing suggesting that this team can be anything greater. They're 16 on offense. They're ranked 18th in defense. This team is mediocre. They're not better than the record suggests it would seem. It is a mediocre team producing mediocre sort of results. And this is a team that seems to be stuck all in on nothing. And despite the fact that we were buyers at the trade deadline with adding in Jakob Poeltl, that didn't move the needle nearly enough to really shift those expectations for this team. Because making the play-in tournament, you're disappointed to be a team in the play-in tournament. There's not teams out there excited to be playing in the play-in tournament. I can almost assure you that. And even though they're going to be driving to succeed on the court, that's just a competitive edge between these athletes. And this ESPN report would highlight that even further. There's that lack of belief within this team and this core to actually work. Maybe for this season, maybe as well for the short term going through the next couple of years. But as I said, certainly a basketball mind like Masai Ujiri has to understand his issues here, and things need to be fixed in the offseason. If things continue to go in this trend, committing to this mediocre group of players that has consistently produced mediocre sort of results, even with Jakob Poeltl, the Raptors in the stretch with Poeltl are ranked 11th on defense. And actually that was before that Lakers game where we got absolutely lit up for over 120 points and 70 points in the first half. So we've probably fallen off from that status as well. So it's very weird to see the front office committing to a team like this. I understand that, hey, some better options for trade, especially for OG Anunoby, potentially as well for Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent. Those could come in the offseason, especially better trades for OG than those that were offered at the trade deadline. But a lot needs to change. It's very clear. We all see it. And now, apparently, the players see it as well. Big summer of moves, roster changes coming up for the front office. They need to meet those expectations. They need to meet the expectations of fans here because we got to understand that this is just not good enough. We cannot accept a team that's going to sit in the middle and seemingly sit there for the next couple of years with the way things are trending. Changes need to happen. I believe in this front office to be able to make those changes. We'll see how it all plays out. But got to say, the rest of the season, I'm not holding out a ton of hope as to what the Raptors can achieve. Hopefully I'm proven wrong, but I'm going to support the team all the way through. What did you guys make of this video? Did you find any sort of value out of it? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below on what you think the best direction is for this team in the summer. And drop a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more Raptors content and videos like this, live stream watch parties, and YouTube shorts now as well. Thank you for all the great support on Amateur Sports. We'll see you again next time.